with galleries and openings and restaurants and cafes. It's got a very bustling nightlife. Would be one nice trip. A trip along the Missouri River, which comes kind of from the west into St. Louis, along there would take you into some of our smaller towns that, again, are closer than Columbia, that reflect our colonial heritage. One of those would be Herman, which with two N's, which is of course, was a German community until in the 1800s. And in the Herman area, of course, besides the German architecture, is German food and a number of wineries that kind of give that experience in bed and breakfast. So that's charming, and that's just southwest of St. Louis. As you go south, you can go along the Great River Road from St. Louis, and you appreciate the Mississippi River and all that means in our history, and as people know the U.S. from around the world. One of the towns down there is St. Genevieve. St. Genevieve reflects some of our other colonial heritage, which is the French colonial heritage, and has some of the original buildings from those French pioneers, which by our standards are rather old, and they're from the mid-1700s. So those are interesting to see that as well. And what comes with that is great food and great wineries. As we continue down, you go all the way down the Mississippi River, all the way down to Cape Girardeau, eventually into Arkansas. Turning north from St. Louis, about a little bit over an hour north of St. Louis, is Hannibal, Missouri, along the Mississippi River, which is the birthplace of Mark Twain, which I know folks know. It's where he grew up. His boyhood home is still there. It's where he was inspired to become a riverboat captain, pilot, and also write Huck Finn and Tom Sawyer based on some of his experiences there. So that'd be I think, a good experience for people. And then, in addition, and we haven't talked about this much, but it starts really in St. Louis, and that is the Katy Trail, John, which is a bicycle trail that runs east and west across the whole state of Missouri. And it's the longest rails to trails conversion in the United States, which means it once was a train line, and it was repurposed to be a bicycle trail. And it's over 250 miles from St. Louis to just south of Kansas City across the state. And it's very, very popular for bicyclists and hikers that can take that trail because it goes through so many different kinds of environments, from farmland to gentle mountains to forest, and also goes along that kind of winery and bed and breakfast trail that reflects our heritage. And that's a really nice thing, and that goes all the way out. You can take it as slow or as quickly as you like, and it's because it was a train bed. It's not there's not very hilly, so the Katy Trail, and it's one of our state parks, is a really interesting thing for people to experience.
Sounds like too much like hard work for me, unfortunately.
Well, the nice thing is there's no hills, so. And also people do hike it as well. Yeah. People do hike it. It's a nice hike too.
You're listening to The Travel Show with John Guinn on UKHealthRadio.com. There'll be more from Dan on what you can see and do in the US state of Missouri in a short while. But first, I just want to talk to you about the new app from Google. The all-in-one travel app is called Trips, and it's the first app which aims to be a personalised tour guide, and it is available for Android and for Apple devices. Although when you listen to what it does, you may think about a little bit like Big Brother is watching you. Google Trips suggests activities to do at a destination based on the time, weather, ratings by other Google users, and your past mobile device behaviour. Using your Gmail account, Trips pulls out the reservation details to build lists of suggested itineraries. Once a user is at their destination, the tool can suggest relevant activities, as I said, based on the time of day and your location, which is a little bit scary because it knows exactly where you are and what you're doing. Mapping out favourite attractions can help travellers, so Trips say, to make the best use of their holiday time. It aims to make it easy to see and quickly to see which attractions are open, account for how long it takes to get from point A to point B, and it also estimates how long visitors typically stay at each stop. This new app is an improvement on the previous one they tried called Field Trip. This one was a tour guide app, come out a few years ago, and it relied on content from selected publishers and users for a limited set of destinations, so it really wasn't that useful. And unlike Field Trip, the search giant's providing a bit of marketing as well to make sure people know about this particular application, and there is a promotional video about it too. I'll give you the link for the video in a short while. To encourage habitual use, Google Trips also has a place to store flights, hotels and car rental information, and it also has your hotel confirmation details and lets you plot your hotel on a map, even if your device lacks access to an internet data signal. One major implication of Trips for attraction managers and food and beverages vendors is to make sure that their business details are on the local Google local cards or organic directory listings are up to date. So it's very important for people. If you want people to come, you have to make sure you rate very well on Google. And vendors may also want to encourage customers to post reviews on Google Local as well, because the importance of the reviews also helps for the Google Trips to recommend places as well. So if you have no reviews, you're not going to get recommended. So it's all on the people who run the businesses to really make sure they're on top of their Google SEO. Customization is important for everybody on a holiday, well, most people, especially me. And Google Trips has a For You option that recommends places to see and dine based on what the application knows about you. So it's keeping an eye on what you do all the time, more or less, and it pulls out your saved places from maps and the types of searches you've done in the past to suggest some places that might be particularly appealing. So if you end up at a strip joint, your partner may find out what you've been Googling for. This is only for 200 popular destinations around the world. The app also has day plans, which are itineraries that include a mix of the most popular sites and attractions. And a uniquely Google perk is that for each major attraction, Google displays the the average length of time that people stay there. I'll probably be the sort of person who's well off average and far too quick. And it's based on the anonymised behaviour data of millions of Android mobile users. So don't worry, if you've got an Android phone, Google's keeping track of what you're doing unless you specifically told it. It can't. The app combines that data with average travel times from its maps to build a day-long itinerary. But you're not stuck with pre-made plans because you can edit and you can swap in and out other attractions if you're not too happy with the choices that the app's come up with. So it doesn't beat a knowledgeable travel agent just yet, because the Google's approach in compiling suggestions means that recommendations are weighed towards attractions that have built up favourable reviews via Google Local over time. So just open venues and smaller local gems which don't get much foot traffic may be missed, whereas a professional would know about these small places and recommend them to you. Also, if your destination is not one of the top 200 most popular, it will not offer full or part-day itineraries, but it will still provide suggestions of things to do and places for food and drink, and they're going to be grouped in thematically. In case a traveller faces a lack of steady internet access or wants to avoid roaming data charges on a foreign cellular network, which I tried very hard to do in Antigua last week. Did I mention I was in Antigua? Itineraries can be saved for viewing offline. The app's development may signal a more dedicated focus on travel by Google. In the past year or so, Google has released a set of browser-based tools for destination inspiration and research. It has revamped its hotel search interface and also added instant booking. And it's made its payment structure more flexible for hotels. And its flight search is also more mobile friendly. So maybe this might be the end of a travel agent, but it won't be the end of a good travel agent. Google Trips is free for Android or Apple devices, and if you want to see the promotional video, go to U2, which is youtu.be/IGN2, all lowercase, capital G, lowercase m, capital V, capital E, and lowercase FLW. But as always, the link will be posted at facebook.com/John Guinn Travel Show. You can follow me on Twitter at holiday_hut. The spotlight this week is on Missouri, and I'm speaking to Dan Lennon, the Director of Missouri Division of Tourism. Before I started to wobble on about Google Trips, Dan was telling us about the Cafe Trail a 225-mile-long cycling track across the state, which used to be a railway line. And instead it goes through a national park. So that's the next thing I wanted to know was, how many state national parks are there in Missouri, and what do they have to offer?
We have 88 state parks, and they're all over the states. One of the most extensive state park systems in the U.S., and that includes some of our historic sites. And they're of all different kinds. Most of them are close to water of some kind or another, and have primitive camping and regular camping sites and RV camping. I would bring your attention to a couple of things. Mm-hmm. All of these are situated along a fairly extensive hiking trail system. In 2014, the American Trails Institute called Missouri, we were the best trail state in 2014, and I assure you not much has changed since 2014. We have a very, very interesting trails and beautiful views. A brand new one just opened in July called Echo Bluff State Park, and it's probably the most remote state park in terms of distance from major population centers. So one nice thing about that is you get to see the beautiful sky without the city lights getting in the way for stargazing and so on. Mm-hmm. What's different about this particular park is, in addition to offering all the things you might imagine in a state park, is a new lodge. We haven't done that in Missouri so much. It's a 20-room lodge for people who, back to your point about being a lot of work, people who want to experience a wilderness experience but don't necessarily want to hike 40 miles with a backpack or sleep outdoors, can sleep in a very nicely appointed lodge with fireplaces and wood and a restaurant, and then there are 9 additional cabins that surround that lodge. Something you might imagine you'd see in Montana or Wyoming. Just really, really lovely. And from there you can see the sinking creek in a place called Echo Bluff, which is a rock formation that bounces back your voice and so on. It's very remote, clean water, beautiful weather. And if you continue to go and hike east of there are wild elk to see, as well as wild horses that are quite commonly seen from the Echo Bluff area. So that's just one of our state parks. We have 88, and they all provide different kinds of experiences, but it's one of our things we're proud in our state.
Out of the 88, is it possible to narrow down to one which would be the best one to visit during the fall?
Best one. It's hard to say that, but I would say the 2 best times to visit in Missouri are, and particularly in maybe the southern parts of the state, is spring and fall. Mm-hmm. In the spring, all of our dogwoods and redwoods dogwoods and redbuds are blooming out, and it's a beautiful time. But fall is remarkable. We have foliage change like New England does, so you'll see oranges and yellows and reds all over our hillsides, and most of those are really beautiful to see. There's a particular one called Elephant Rocks. It's one of our state parks that's in the South Central that, by its name, it has very large rocks that were left behind by the glaciers as they moved down south through Missouri, and they're huge, bigger than elephants actually, and very unusual. And they're interesting to hike through and look at the fall foliage. Would be a great place to go. Another one is called Johnson Shut-ins, which is kind of an interesting name, and is a series of natural rock pools, again created by some of the glacial activity from years ago. A series of rock pools that will take you downstream, and you can hike through those as well, and again be able to look at all the beautiful foliage. These are all available at the Missouri State Parks website for people to get more information about that. And most of those are free on a day use basis.
Do any of them close during the winter? Do they get really snowed in, or is your weather different to that?
All of them are open year-round.
Yeah.
During the winter months, January, February, occasionally some aspect of them may not be available, like showers or something that's kind of weather-related, perhaps. But for the most part, all of them are open all year round. One thing that's not a state park, but I really wanted to mention it, is in the southern part of the state is where the Ozark Mountains are, and they're the oldest mountain range in the United States. So when you think of mountains, you can think of the Rocky Mountains as being sharp, and they're still growing, and they're young and snow-covered, and that's kind of a Rocky Mountain look. Mm-hmm. The Ozark Mountains are older and softer and smaller and kind of rounded and heavily forested. So it's a very gentle and beautiful